Coming into my third consecutive Badwater 135, I was determined to have a strong race. I had invested so much time and effort into training and preparation, but leading up to the start, I was feeling off, like I was coming down with something. It wasn't nerves. I knew my body, and I just tried to block it out, hoping it wouldn't manifest. Can you say terrible timing? Unfortunately, by the time the race began, I had zero energy. It was as if whatever had been brewing in my system hit me full force. Right from the start, I wasn't myself, and it wasn't the race I had meticulously planned. With every mile, my disappointment grew. I had imagined a different outcome after so much hard work. Sport owes us nothing. No matter how well prepared we are or how much we train, the outcome is never guaranteed. You can be in peak condition, ready for a race like Badwater, and yet still face unexpected challenges. The frustration and disappointment of me not performing at my best was very, very hard for me to swallow. But that's part of being human, competitive, and passionate about the sport. The silver lining is in the commitment to finish, even when things don't go your way. It's not always about having your best day, but about pushing through and proving to yourself that you can persevere no matter the circumstances. When I crossed the finish line, it was with mixed emotions. I know that Badwater is never easy, but this time it was more than just the physical and mental challenge. It was a reminder that sometimes, despite all the preparation, things can go sideways. And that's just part of the journey too. This video is a recap of my third consecutive finish at Badwater 135. I owe everything to my amazing team. Without them, none of this would have been possible.
Hello and welcome back to Julie's Jewels. I am Mike Turner. I'm here with, you guessed it, Jules herself. Julie Finger, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. So we have a special treat tonight. She has had a couple weeks to recover from her recent Badwater 135 finish, and she's ready to sit down and chat about it. This is her third Badwater 135 finish. Let's just say things didn't go as planned. She had to dig deep into places that she seldom ever has to go to find the strength to pull herself through to get herself to the finish line. So it's a great story. We're going to get into all the details, but first we want to say hi to her crew and see what everybody's up to, who's joining us tonight. So Melissa Johnson, MJ, how's it going? How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
So what is the story? How long have you known Julie, and how long have you been a part of her crew?
I have been volunteering for Julie since she bought Rio del Lago from Molly back in the day. Started out at Rattlesnake and then was promoted to No Hands, and then promoted to helping a little more on the back end with the aid stations and the rest of her races. So I love working for her and supporting NorCal, and the NorCal team's awesome. Just wonderful group of people and great events. And then on a personal note, just running and training with Julie. Always have admired the first time I ran Rio, she was winning and I still had a 50K to go and was leaving Cabot, and she was running in like a train. And I remember, oh, that's Julie Fingar. So now we're friends. So crewing for her last year and this year, love supporting her and like I said, the NorCal team. And so the rest is history. She's a good, dear friend of mine.
That is great. Yeah, a lot of history. It's fun to, when you run with somebody, you really get to know them, their ins and outs and how they work. And then to see them race, it's just probably, especially to see them dig deep, is probably very special.
Yeah, you see all sides.
All sides. And we got Chris O'Connor here tonight. Chris, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing okay, thanks. Sorry, I will have mute on occasionally because I have dogs that are reacting to the door. But yeah, anyway, hello.
Hello, cool. So, Chris, how long have you known Julie?
I don't know. It's probably the early aughts. Um, I knew of her before I knew her. I think she passed me at a trail marathon back in the day, and I was like, "Who's that?" And um, that was Julie. So no, we've I've been volunteering for NorCal Ultras quite a few years now. Uh, I think I've known Julie longer than that.
The
But
live stream last year, you helped us out. We're on the team with that, so that was great last year. It was pretty exciting. And how long you been a part of Badwater?
2 years now. This is my second year.
Okay, good.
So it's yeah, I was a rookie last year and a sophomore this year, and whatever she's doing next year, which I think is not Badwater. Um,
It's not, but full disclosure, Chris is our art department, NorCal Ultras art department of one, but he is amazing. He is solo, but he does the work of 100 people, and so all of the e-blast and anything artsy that you see does not come from me. It comes from Chris. So he is the guru behind it. So he is our one and only, and we love him to death for everything that he does, and Mark's Trail and all kinds of other things on the NorCal side. But yes, Chris wears many hats, and thank you.
Making me blush.
Mhm.
And this year on Badwater, what do you guys have official roles? MJ and Chris, and do you get, or who's in charge?
Oh, we should go to Brian.
Okay, well, let's go to
Yeah.
Brian
Brian, you're
then.
on mute.
There he is.
Brian Ward, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
So you're the connecting piece of the puzzle for all 3 years, as I understand.
Yes, the connecting piece of the puzzle for 3 years. Been with Julie now for 3 years. So knew and met Julie back in 2009 when I started dating her sister, now my amazing wife. And I was introduced to ultra marathons. And at the time, I'm like, ultra marathons, what the heck are those things? At the time, there really wasn't a whole lot known, at least in my world. And she really introduced me to that world. And back maybe 3 years ago, she said, "Hey, I think we may need somebody to drive." And I said, "Well, I used to fly Blackhawks, and I'm used to like really hot weather. I could probably do that." And over time, my role has kind of expanded from there. I'm not really like a runner per se, but I've ran more and more, and I've I don't know if I've enjoyed it, but I I have enjoyed it in my own right. And as of last year, I became an ultra marathoner.
Oh,
So this is
congratulations.
really, yeah, this has really like encouraged me, inspired me to become dip my toe into the ultra marathon world.
That's great. Congrats. What race was that?
It's called Surf the Murph here in Minnesota. So I live here in the greater Twin Cities area. And so it's a 50, they call it a 50K, but it's really like a 55K.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
Those are the favorite races when you have extra miles. We love those, but newbies don't love extra miles, right, MJ? But veterans like,
It,
what's a couple more miles?
veterans don't either. It's, if you know you have a few, or if you know the race director, that's one thing, and you can kind of, but yeah, sometimes it can be a little disappointing.
Yeah, no, for
Challenging.
sure. And we also have here tonight from behind the scenes, Amy Klassen. She is the social media manager and helping us out with Instagram and Facebook posts and how to tag and what's a hashtag and how to do Instagram and all those cool things. How's it going, Amy?
Good. I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I was excited this year because I got to work with her during Badwater. We had some shifts, and she's done it before, so she kind of showed me how to do it and how to get on the Instagram and get all the posts out. So it was pretty fun getting information from MJ and pictures and throwing them out. That was pretty exciting to kind of follow along. That was awesome. So thanks, Amy.
Yeah, Amy is my PR manager on the side for and president.
The president of Julie's fan club. So
Nice.
but
We make up titles here, so you can be whatever you'd like to be. Dream big.
Right. Well, good. So tonight let's get into the basics of Badwater before we get into Julie's race. We're going to talk about the basics, go down that, then get into Julie's race and kind of her training. She's had some injuries before. We talked about on Julie's Tool some of the pre-injury, injury, how to get through an injury, and she's had some injuries this training season. So, and then also get into her planning, how to plan the race and her crew strategies, and then we'll get into the course and we're going to walk through, section by section to talk about what went right and where the wheels fell off, and kind of get some good information, some inspiring stories about how us newer runners can learn from these lessons that she's experienced as well. So, first of all, the race, Badwater 135, hosted by Chris Kosman, the Chief Adventure Officer. He's been in the RD for 20 years, 25 years, a long time.
Yeah, for 2.5 decades, and he's got a whole history of other adventure races that he's been a part of and directed. So he's a very well-accomplished athlete himself.
Yeah, and so globally recognized as the world's toughest foot race, Badwater 135 Ultra Marathon is pure athletic challenge of the athlete, the shoes, and of course, like you guys, and the support crew, versus a brutal 135-mile stretch of highway. The start line is in Badwater Basin, Death Valley, which is the lowest elevation in North America at negative 280 feet below sea level. The race finishes at the Whitney Portal, elevation 8,300 feet, which is the trailhead to Mount Whitney Summit, which is the highest point in the contiguous U.S., which is pretty cool. Badwater 135 course covers 3 mountain ranges, totaling of 14,600 vertical feet of ascent, which is pretty crazy, and 6,100 feet of descent, which is pretty amazing. Some of these landmarks, I was reading through some of the places that you guys, Mushroom Rock, Furnace Creek, that sounds like a cool place to be. Salt Creek, Devil's Cornfield. I mean, who creates these
Furnace
names?
Creek is the devil.
Okay. We got Devil's Golf Course, Stovepipe Wells, Panamint Spring, Darwin, Keeler, Lone Pine, Alabama Hills, and the Sierra Nevada. Those sound better, but some of those ones like Devil's Cornfield. Okay.
It's not flat, which is a misnomer, I think. I think people think Badwater, first of all, they don't know it's on the road the whole time. Or if they do and they go, it's on the road, I think they imagine that it's a flat course. I know I did, being in ultras for a long time, and then, getting the crash course last year, I was like, oh, there's some climbs, Father Crowley and some other ones. So
Yeah, some grinding long pavement climbs, which are
mhm.
just, tough. And the website's really detailed. It goes through all the different climbs. And so
Oh yeah.
the race starts in waves, and I think it was an 8, 9, and 10, or is there an 11 or not?
Correct. 8, 9, and 10 this year.
Okay, 8, 9, and 10. Some years it could be an 11.
My first year, I believe the waves were 8, 10, and 11, or 9, 10, and 11. Okay, no, this is 3 years ago. I got to remember. But the first year I ran, my wave start was at 11 p.m. The last 2 years, it's been at 10 p.m.
And then the cutoffs, doesn't matter when you start, the cutoffs are the cutoffs. So that way the faster runners start in the earlier waves and they get through. And so then the later runners, but it's the same cutoffs, right? It's not a moving cutoff. They're different.
So the first cutoff, which is the start to mile 50.8, I believe is the exact mileage location. The official cutoff for all waves, whether you start at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, is 10 a.m. And so the you get seated according to when you put in your application what time you project to finish in. But how it really goes is that the more time you need, you should be in the 8 o'clock wave, the 9 o'clock wave. Let's say it's a little more intermediate, and then the last wave is a little more advanced with the elite runners. And so if you're in that 10 p.m. wave, which I've been in that last wave, let's call it, for the last 3 years, you need to make it to 50.8 by 10 a.m. So does that 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. wave. So if you're doing the math, you'll see that the second to last wave and then the last wave have a shorter total time in order to get to mile 50.8. So I had 11 hours, guys. No, 12 hours, guys. The first year I had 11 hours to do it. And then when the wave got adjusted to 10 p.m. versus 11 p.m., I had 12 hours. Did I get that right, you guys? Oh my gosh.
It's pretty close. It's pretty good math. Yeah.
So you essentially have to run faster if you're in that second or third wave.
Yeah. And that's and obviously Death Valley, the temperatures are unimaginable. I mean, it's always over 100 degrees, right? Even at night.
Yeah. Anybody get a temperature reading at the start line there this year?
I think we were going down to the start line and we saw something like 122. But I think it's hotter than Satan's armpit is what we'd said.
Yeah, 122, and then that's at night. I mean, it's dark. It's so bizarre.
Well, at night, I think the lowest it ever got the entire time was like 96 degrees. It stayed really warm. But what made this year so unique was that there was a storm. So we're driving out to the start, and literally you can't see. It's like a whiteout snowstorm, except it's sand. And we're driving to the start. And I know internally we're all being very optimistic, but there were some of us that were like, holy smokes, this has got to calm down. And it did. But we're driving towards, it rained, there was cloud cover, lots of thunder and lightning in the mountains and the high country. So the pressure of the air and the humidity was so much different than last year. It was hotter. I feel like the air was thicker. It was like I don't know what the barometric pressure was, but it felt really.
It was Old Testament.
Yes. Yeah. We were waiting. Yeah. Like we were waiting for the blood moon to come and all the things. I mean, we had bugs, heat, storm, you name it, this year. So it was epic. Definitely just even driving before you even got to the start line.
So unexpected than in prior years, it was just hot.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. It was different. It was heavy. All the runners talked about, we could feel it too. I mean, it's always hot, but not that kind of um, pressure in the air and the way that it kind of felt heavy, making it, I think, hard for athletes to push and to breathe, which we'll talk about impacted Julie for sure.
Yeah. So quickly in general about qualifying and how to enter this race, Julie. What is? I know I've heard it's quite complicated. What's the in general? How do you get into the race? What do you have to do? What do you have to
Yes.
qualify?
Yeah, so it's an invitation only race. And I'm gonna refer to the Badwater website for all of the nitty-gritty qualifications that you actually need, because they can change from year to year. But essentially, I believe there's like A criteria, B criteria, C criteria of what you need on your resume. Obviously, a couple 100-mile runs, some, previous finishes and accomplished races. But in addition to just having your race resume on par, you also need to complete an application, which is typically open in the middle of January for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. The dates change, so it's on the website there if you're interested in applying after you hear our story. But It's about a 45-minute kind of quick essay. Chris, you're gonna have to help me with this because you know what this entails, and um, these are not like
There's essay questions.
essay questions.
Essay questions. Tell
Yeah, with
us what do people think of you? And I mean, they put you on the spot. Some of them, so you have to think about them pretty carefully before answering. So,
yeah, and year one, obviously, I didn't know what the whole process. I hadn't gone through it, so it was like as a fish out of water. Year two, obviously, I was a little more familiar with the process. Um, and then year three, by no means am I a pro because some of these questions change from year to year. But there's also a word count limit on a lot of these questions, so you're trying to answer pack a punch and do it succinctly too. And you, in my opinion, and how I looked at it was I felt like I was quasi taking also like a psych test because like subjectively, objectively, you don't know what, like there's no right or wrong answer in my opinion, but you just don't know what exactly is going to resonate with the folks that are reading your application and not. So I had a lot of like ambiguity of, should I say this, should I say this, should I say this, and being like a perfectionist and kind of wanting to get an A+ on the essay itself. I spent hours and hours on this, talking to Chris, others, my mom, who's like an English major, and you know, trying to communicate and authentically, but also kind of um, you know do it justice. So I think there's a whole reason and rationale behind this, and to be frank, I actually don't know what exactly that is. We'd have to talk to Chris Kossman about that. But I will say that, again, being a fish out of water year one, I didn't know what to expect. And I was like, oh my goodness, and a little overwhelmed. But I came to appreciate the process and there being this a whole other processes that you have to go through in order to just put your application into the hat and then hopefully get invited after that. But I think that just shows the level of professionalism and also the level that they want in the race, and really exemplifying what Badwater stands for.
So find people that have run it and have applied and get lots of advice from all kinds of people.
I mean, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, for sure.
And in general about crewing, not with your crew, but specifically, how does the crew work? Is it 8 stations or what's the story?
Yeah, Chris, you want to explain how this crazy?
So 8 stations would be impractical. I don't know how they could do that. So you have to have crew. It's got to be at least 2 people. Um, uh, I think preferably 3. And from my perspective, you 3 is a minimum because you're always doing something. Everybody. But you follow your runner around. You can't. You have to be. I mean, we found that we have to be within half a mile of her pretty much at all times. But you have to stop pretty frequently. It would surprise a person who's used to going maybe 16 miles or 10 miles or 8 miles or whatever between 8 stations and taking your time about it. Here, there's consequences for your runner going more than 2 miles without aid, and so you need to be there ready pretty frequently. I mean, last year I think we were averaging about every mile. Julie was really struggling with some sections this year, so we were doing it more frequently than that. So 8 stations can't do that. So you got to have a van full of aid. You have a lot of ice. You got to have a lot of choices because you never know what somebody wants at mile 10 versus mile 70 versus mile 120. and with 3 people, one of us, we were all jumping pretty much uh, nonstop. There's no rest for anybody involved in the race. I mean, you might be
Day or
able to
night.
shut down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but everybody is on the whole time.
Huh. Yeah, it's quite the commitment that, as you mentioned, just having people committed to your goal. You're pretty so you gotta be really grateful. People, it's like it's ultra running so beautiful because we meet friends that will do this for us, and it's like makes you like you're like, man, this is such a great sport, you
But
know.
you can I don't think you can get I don't think you can get involved in it. I mean, Julie has people who would go to the ends of the earth for her. She'd throw a stick and get somebody to help. But um, you become invested in it personally. It becomes it's I felt like I was not running the race, but it was. I mean, I wanted that finish line as bad as she did.
Mhm.
Um, you if it were a total stranger, I'd still be completely invested after a few miles.
Yeah, you have to
So
be.
And I think too, people always ask how you pick your crew. As Chris said, you have to have a minimum of 2 people. We had 3 the last 2 years. The first year we had 4 people, so you can have up to 4. That's the limit there. But I I believe, and this is for me. This is what works for me. Everybody that has run Badwater has probably done something different, but it's not just the best runner out there that you really want to take. I mean, obviously everybody on my team is accomplished runners, but you also want personalities that are going to jive with you. So we got our pilot Brian, who's like calm, cool, and collected. I mean, everybody is. But things happen, crises arise very quickly, and you have to be super solution oriented. So having a team that has that mindset is really key. Certainly having people that know you to some degree, some level is super helpful. Though we've seen teams, you guys, we've seen teams that have strangers on their crew as well, and that can work too. I'm just super grateful that I have my friends out there as part of my team. But so there's a whole kind of like mindset and just kind of dynamics, that I think when you're picking a team or putting together a team, that you consider and really what's going to suit you best. And so,
Yeah, some races you can get away with a simple plan, but some races take some real thought. This is a big commitment, so it's a long commitment. So people that know you, it's really key to, helping you move through something like that. Seems like,
yeah.
the
And
irony is that it does require an extraordinary amount of planning and organizing, but when it comes to being in the race itself, it's all about problem solving because your plan goes out the window. It's I think it's Mike Tyson quote. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
yeah,
Um, Badwater immediately punches you in the nose, and whatever your plan is, you're and that I think I've learned this year is the key to
yeah,
succeeding there is being flexible and being a half decent troubleshooter because you're it's like it things change so
yeah.
you got to adapt.
That leads us into what we're going to talk about in a little bit. That Julie has run, 25 years of running and racing and winning, and you've been through everything. So you thought, or most things, and you've done enough races where when you've done enough races, you pretty much yourself pretty well. But there's always ultras, like I think MJ taught me years ago. Ultras don't care that you win, that you won last year, even you ran yesterday. They don't care that your knee hurts. They will. Every race is a different race, and anything can happen. So it's hard. So real quick, so we're gonna get into her race. I want to start with your training because you were injured You were swimming, you were doing water yoga, water workouts, all kinds of crazy workouts you were doing. You know, and so how did that go? And how did you get to the start line? How did you feel when you started?
Yeah. So in the middle of May, I had two minor tears, one in my glute medius and one in my iliopsoas. You can look at the anatomy chart to see where those muscles are located. But so it did take me out of running for about 2 weeks total of like no running. But I was super fortunate at that time. Um, I had a huge base and already had a lot of volume and miles because, again, having done Badwater 2 times prior to this year, my training really kicked off in like January. And so I, had done a couple races January, February, March, and done some longer training runs during that time, to prepare so that basically, I wasn't preparing overnight, that I was going to give myself 6 months to get ready for this race. And it was just unfortunate that, middle of May developed these tears and again, no running for about 2 weeks. But what I did in lieu of running and like actual impact was aqua jog, which I became a huge fan of. And I would do it again tomorrow if I needed to do it. So went to my friend's pool and just aqua jog for several hours, 4 or 6 times a week, to make up for basically running outside, and was able to do some bike and elliptical as I was healing. And by about week 3, so there's about a 5-week period of these injuries. By about week 3, 3.5, I was able to do some easy jogging and get back into running. And so I, when I went back to like running, I did not feel like I lost any fitness. I might have lost my mind in about 3 weeks, and everybody on my team was like, I don't know, I hope I'm going to be ready, like, just kind of all the freak outs that you do when you have an injury and you're training for something that is really meaningful to you. Just worried about that. And of course, like we've talked about, it takes a team. And so I was very cognizant of that. And from the very beginning of developing these injuries, my mindset was that if I did not feel, with all the therapy and stuff that I was doing in order to heal these injuries, if I did not feel like I was 100% healthy, like these tears had healed, I was not going to toe the line, regardless, because it's a disservice and a disrespect to like myself, my body, my team, and the race itself. And so that was kind of my number one kind of like North Star guiding light through this whole thing. But I think everybody who knows me knows I was like freaking determined, to come through this, even though I had my doubts and freak out texts to Chris a lot. Thank you for answering. And, I had great healers and physical therapists and doctors helping me. And so we were able to really combat the issues that I was having and get to the start line with, I'm not going to say I wasn't like 1% concerned about them. I was, but not to the point where I felt like they were going to be a hindrance to my performance. And they were not. We'll get into the story, but the injuries never surfaced. And so, yeah.
That's amazing because that goes to show, that it's about you have a plan, and like Chris said, until you get hit in the face, then your plan changes, and you have to be able to adapt in the race, but prior to the race in your training. And having that happen in May versus if it happened in March, you could have got through it and had some great blocks. You got recovered just in time to race. So getting to the start line, it was tricky, but it's how you got there and you figured it out. So it's about figuring out and having lots of team, having a big team, having doctors be able to help you. So
Yeah, and of course, having experience of over 2 decades of running ultras and stuff, And of course, having done Badwater twice at this point, going into this year's race gives you confidence regardless, even though you have some self-doubt, which is totally normal. But it really does breed confidence knowing that you have a lot of, like a lot of deposits in your bank from years and years of running. And so I definitely pulled on that. And there were some times early on in my ultra career that I got some injuries going into 100-mile races. And I kind of look back at that and what did I do and how did I, manage, and those helped me greatly. And, all of those experiences, I was fine once I got to that start line. So,
'Cause we all get injured running, and we will get injured again. And so learn the lessons, right? Have help and learn the lessons on how to recover and how to work through it. So how did I know we talked about Brian has been there 3 years on your crew, other folks 2 years. How did you change strategies this year versus prior years, a different vehicle? I mean, anything different this year?
I don't know. Brian should attack this having 3 years of go.
Let's see here. I think, I think we made a couple of tweaks that MJ really brought to life from last year, and really made us more efficient. One of those was creating those basically water jugs that you see out on the race courses, right? So just filling those. Like last year, we were basically making a la carte drink orders as Julie would come in, and then like trying to track her down, which, we're sprinting every time and trying to track her down. So that really helped this year. The other one, MJ, that I really liked was creating little carts and that we'd put on the other side of the road that would have everything that you needed. One of them was like a med kit that would have sunscreen, um, bug spray, little band-aids. And then the other one was all about food hydration. So just creating those two kind of kits segmented by like med and then food and hydration, I think really helped us as a crew. MJ, anything else that you think we changed from last year to this year?
I think the way that the bins were labeled, there was some more, Julie's the queen of labeling.
Oh,
And one of the key for people that watch this, if you can allow the crew to load the vehicle and to organize the things together, it's a huge tip. It doesn't necessarily, the runner, yeah, kind of needs to, but the runner doesn't really need to know. It's all about the crew knowing where to get the stuff and how is best to organize the vehicle. And you have to picture it. It's hard to picture, but if you stop every half mile or a mile, and it's 135 miles, so, at least time and a half that. I won't say double, but almost probably double that you stop. So you have the cars on one side, the runners on the other side. If the runner has to run to the car every single time you stop, those steps of crossing over the road add up. It's a ton of energy to stop her momentum to have to come to the car. So a lot of crews do this. We're not unique in this, but if you've never been there before, you need to imagine we're going across the street with a caddy from the car, running really quick, waiting for her, cooling her down, giving her, we took an ice bucket across that was helpful so that we could constantly wet her down because of where she was on the course. There was a really hot stretch on her last morning going across into Lone Pine. I mean, good God. And she needs to eat. She's really hungry, but she doesn't want anything we have. So, but you have to imagine the amount of energy it takes for the runner to cross over the road if she had to do that. So being a little more organized and efficient when we came to her to be able to troubleshoot effectively, especially considering the challenges this year, and saving time was helpful.
Yeah, it seems like if you don't, so a tip is to find people that have done this course.
What I'm hearing is you need to have a former aid station captain on your crew. Aid station
Yes.
captain MJ to the rescue.
That's right.
It's a good time. It's a good team. You're tired, you're fatigued, and there's no room for drama or
What
grump.
you need is a strong woman and two guys willing to listen to her.
There we go.
Amen.
Oh man.
So the race. Let's get into the race. We know how you were feeling. We don't know how you're feeling. We know your injuries. Coming back off that, the weather was weird, dusty, rainy. It was different. And then you start the course. You're what's going on? You're at Badwater Basin, lowest point, 280 below sea level, and you start the race. How are things feeling?
We got to the start after this fun sandstorm and thunderstorm and whatnot. And honestly, I was feeling okay, but, and I'm not sure if my team actually knows this, but inside, I didn't feel good. But I didn't want to say anything. I did to Chris once the race started and we were running up the ramp, and I said, "Get the food ready. I don't feel very good." But it kind of just hit me that I really actually didn't feel good. I felt like somebody like took a hammer and punched it on my back, and that unfortunately is a sign for me, like when I get sick, like that's how I can describe it, is it's just like I feel hollow, and we haven't even started the race yet. And so I'm sitting there kind of confused, but like just in a little bit of crisis mode internally. Oh my gosh, like I gotta go, I gotta start. All this is happening. I don't know what to do, but I don't really want to say it out loud too much because I don't want to manifest it more. So it's kind of like secretly trying to bury it and thinking, like I've thought other times and it's worked, that once I start running, I'll feel better and everything's just going to be fine. And so I kind of went with that whole thing, albeit um, when the start happens and you're running up this ramp. I don't know if it has an official name, but I did mention to Chris that I just didn't feel good, and you know, get ready kind of thing. And so I had to go about 3.5 miles before I saw the team, because once you take off, um, the crews cannot just immediately depart and just go chasing their runner down the road. There's like an actual procession. There's rules. MJ has studied. She could tell you every rule in the handbook, but there's a lot of rules for a lot of reasons at this race, and one of them being that the attendants, the race staff, lets you out kind of in chunks, if you will. And so you have to be prepared to go at least 3.5 miles on that first segment without seeing your team. And so my hope was by the time I saw them, I would feel better and everything would be rainbows and unicorns. And unfortunately, it wasn't. I kind of just don't even remember that first stop, because I remember starting to puke and puking violently, and I just honestly felt like death. And it was so early on in the race, that at that point in my head, I was unsure if I was even going to make it, but I quickly kind of turned that to what can I do next to try to feel better and try to mitigate this. Um, Backing up, I did puke early on in year one, and we were able to mitigate that. So I was kind of hoping that that would be the same, albeit I felt very different than year one this year.
Yeah,
So
and you puked at mile 7 last year, so you were puking a little earlier this year, which isn't, or year before last, right? So it was even sooner for you than that first year.
yeah, and unfortunately, well, Bill Finkbeiner, the legend, taught me how to puke and rally, puke and run, and so this is nothing like I haven't done before, but you have to be really careful and know that obviously you're getting rid of things and you need to put back in things. So it can be very, very challenging, and you can't just throw down a bunch of fuel, and hope that your stomach and your body absorbs it. You have to be very careful about it. However, in conditions like Badwater, where it's 120 degrees and you're really, really hot and it's nighttime and you need to eat and fuel, because this is like the name of the game, it became like just a catastrophe, in my words, for me, to try to do that. And so, by half marathon, I was already like way behind on, caloric intake, because I was just getting rid of it. And we were just playing this game for a long time. And also, I happened to be in last place, right, guys? Like I was in last. And um I kind of knew this, and the wave had taken off pretty strong, pretty fast. And I looked at my watch and I was like, I'm not running that slow, and I don't know what they're doing. But at the same time, I had like zero energy. And so, where like my mind and my mental resilience are kind of like my superpowers, I wasn't able to do anything with them to kind of, push me forward and help me go a little bit faster and whatnot. I was just like on this like backwards train. So it felt like. And then knowing I was in like last place in my wave, for about a minute or so, I got very scared, like, oh my goodness, am I even going to make it? And I got to make to 50.8 by 10 a.m. the next morning. And so it really then just became like a mission, even though I was in pretty bad shape already, to do anything and everything I could do. And the the team is to thank for all of this, and you ride and die by your team, by the way, people, if you haven't figured this out yet. They are everything. Like they make your finish line and get you there. And So my mission became just to get to 50.8 by 10 a.m. and just to give myself a chance to go on. And in between, half marathon and Stovepipe Wells, which is mile 43, 44, I did make up some time and I was able to pass some runners. And so that felt good. But I was still in really distress and not feeling good and with zero energy, and it's not coming back as in past experiences. I just became concerned, but also just couldn't kind of fathom that this was how this was going. And so they can tell you more of, because there were parts. I'm not gonna say like I was, I wasn't blacked out, but in my mind, I had to black out of what was really happening and taking place. Otherwise, it was going to be too overwhelming. And obviously, when you have negative things that are taking place and you're not feeling good and you're puking and you've got zero energy, um, that can easily be like, check, check, check. I should just drop out of this race. And again, my mission was just to make it to 50.8 and see what was happening from there. But I will say from the very beginning, when I started, that my commitment was, unless I have a broken limb sticking out of my body, I've got to find a way to get to this finish line.
You did.
So I know that that internally was kind of driving me, even though it was really, really, really hard.
So how are you guys feeling? Because it's that secret little thing. No one wants to talk about the monkey in the room. Things are going south. And how are you guys feeling, honestly, now that it's over?
I think we all kind of looked at each other like at mile 3, I think we all kind of looked at each other like, oh boy, this is interesting. And I think somebody said like, hey, Brian, did this happen like the first year? I'm like, oh yeah, it happened, but she was good. She'll be fine. And I think I think we all had optimism that it was going to improve. and honestly, just kudos to Julie, and kudos to Chris and MJ for just keeping her mind in the game. And Julie, like, your mind is so flippin' strong. It's pretty amazing.
MJ, what do you think? How are you thinking? It's like the things where you're like, they leave it and you're like, oh, this looks like crap, but you can't tell her that. You got to just be, you know.
Well, she doesn't remember, but I remember vividly her running in that first 3 miles going, I feel terrible. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. It was this internal, outward, desperate plea to us to help figure it out. For sure, because it was an immediate, like, head on troubleshoot, and we did. So it was just that making sure that we made the right decisions so that we could help her move forward, and that we chose correctly, whether it was electrolytes or more calories or whatever, Pepto-Bismol for our stomach. I mean, whatever it is, you're immediately going through, how can we troubleshoot quickly, and then help her mentally, because we absolutely understand that there isn't, she's in a different space, because you're at night, you can see all the cars, you can see all the runners, you can see the field, and it's kind of a climb, so she can see that she can't see any lights, that it's only her out there running in the dark in the back of the pack, not feeling good. And so you're adding all of these components. Anybody else would have quit, hands down, in this race. I'll say that a million times. Not any, but a lot of people would have. It was immediate troubleshooting, game on. There was no honeymoon to start with, for sure.
If I could add one more thing that I was just thinking about, and he we had a medic and that we know of, and you probably all know him very well. And he quickly became really part of our crew, because I think we all needed psychological support, wondering if we were pushing Julie too far. And also, I think Julie also needed psychological support as well. Like, what do I need also nutritionally, and medical as well. So Brian Medley, who was out there supporting Badwater, who's also supporting Chris Kossman and his crew, who is roving out there, really was a key consultant to our team, and really like supported us. Like he was clutch. He was clutch to really.
It helped that he was pretty much at no point did he say, "Yeah, she might die." So
Right.
he always had confidence. It was just a question of coming up with a solution, whatever it was, which turned out to be. I think one of the big issues in the first 60 miles was the massive calorie deficit she got herself into.
Yeah, I mean, and how her like Julie with the history of races, and then to see her like this here, it's unexpected from a lot of new runners go through lots of things, but it's unexpected to see her in this state, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it upset me. Right around 60 miles. What's the pass? There were bees
Uh,
at the top of
Town
the
pass.
Town pass.
town pass. Yeah.
and like epic bees, not
She
just
had
like
she
a
had like
few bees,
a
like
dozen
biblical
bees
time.
swarming around her head, and she was. I don't know if she remembers this or not. It'd be interesting to get her perspective
Very
on it
angry.
now because there was no indication at all that this was registering with her. And I was just squirting them with the spray bottle, and when that ran out, I was swinging my bottle around, hitting bees left and right. I killed a bunch of bees. I'm sorry to say, um, but a couple times I swiped her, and I was like, she's going to get stung. I was genuinely. I don't worry about bees. I've never, it's not fun to be stung, but it's not the end of the world. I was genuinely worried about her safety because when bees swarm, they can there's a limit to the number of stings you can survive.
Sure, one
And
sting or two is one thing, but when you get
this was 3
20,
miles of bees. Just you could just see people in the distance just doing this. At Towns Pass last year, there was probably 20, 30 people affiliated with the race in some way, like the race officials at the pass because it's an important time checkpoint, and they'll have easy ups, and they had a lot of people out there. This year they had one guy, and he was in a car, and we just it was kind of rough. So yeah, I wasn't feeling too happy about um, how things were going at that point. But everybody told me to shut up. So
to continue on with how things were going at that point, and then
Yeah, so this is about, I think, 100K. I'm rounding, estimating here, where these bees were taking place. And just to back up 2 steps here, you can pick up a pacer at Stovepipe Wells. So 40,
two,
44, 42.
42.
Okay, I want to say 44, 42 miles. And so Chris jumped in with me here, and then we have about 8 miles to make it to the 50.8. The first cutoff, which is basically the main cutoff that anybody really needs to be concerned with, because after you make this cutoff, the cutoffs get more generous and achievable. But it when I got Chris, I just said, just keep me on what we need to do in order to just skin this cat to get there. And I probably asked him 100 times, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? But I don't think I was like moving bad at this point. I think I was very, very determined. And I was like, I'm freaking gonna make this, like, come hell or high water. And just kind of that determination. And really that's all I thought about was just this chunk. Like, I wasn't thinking about bees, which I didn't know were coming, and I wasn't thinking about after that. I was really just trying to compartmentalize and think to myself, like, I've just got to figure this out and just use any energy I have to make this cutoff. And we did. And that felt really good, but I still felt really bad. And so we'll go to bees from there. But I do want to jump back in the nighttime when Melissa was saying, you see all these cars, you see these lights, and so internally, what was also happening with me was that since I have run this race twice now, I was getting very disappointed that, holy crap, like last year I was on fire and I was running amazing and feeling epic, and nothing really was going wrong. And it was completely 360 of that. And so I think for people that like have done repeat races too, and this probably comes up, and this can be a trap, and this can take some people out of the game, is that I had to tell myself to stop comparing that was last year, and this is this year, and this is going to be a completely different race, and this sucks, like totally sucks donkey balls right now. And I hope, and I was kept just like praying, like miracle, like this is going to get better at some point, you know, because that's again been my experience. At some point in these longer things, it will eventually get better. The story never really gets that much better, but you know, and so once I took the comparison out of the whole picture, uh I'm not going to say it got easier per se, but in my mind it got a little bit easier, and I was just really compartmentalizing the next section and the next section and the next section. And really that's how kind of the rest of the race had to go, and I just had to take any split that I knew I ran last year or the first year and throw it out the window. And again, this was just going to be like a new time I was going to set on this course, and it wasn't going to probably be what I had trained and the fitness I had to show for it. It was going to be completely different. And so early on, I was very cognizant of a lot of this mental and internal stuff that was going on, and that I was talking to myself in my head about. And again, thankfully I have lots of experience, and I'm not saying this is easy because it's really hard when you're in the heat of the battle, literally, figuratively. And you're trying to rationalize a lot of these things. And but again, I went back to my commitment of, unless it's a broken limb, uh I am staying in this fight, and I'm gonna figure this out, and we'll get there.
So things are going well at this point, it sounds like. And so you go through the first night, then you got the first day, uh, and so things just continue on that way, the same way. How did the heat play into that whole next day?
You know, I mean, obviously it was hot, but in a way, the next morning to middle of the day, that part wasn't affecting me so much as just being calorically depleted still, and just playing this game of catch up, which you can never catch up. And you just have to pray that you have experienced redlining somewhat, and can do that. But um, you know, back to the bees, I'm gonna out myself and say, other than my broken limb sticking out of my body, like maybe I was secretly hoping that a bee would sting me and maybe take me out of the race and put me out of my freaking misery. So there was that thought for about a minute, because Chris was like, Julie, you have to run. And I'm like, I'm not freaking running. We're going up at 8% grade. Like, I don't care if the bee takes me out, so be it.
Yeah.
Like, I am
But
sad.
things picked up after town passed.
Yeah. So at any rate, yeah, if the bee did.
Did you throw up any more in the race?
Yeah, I mean, it was a constant cycle and of either throwing up, dry heaving, what have you. And this is where Brian was referring to, that medic Brian, who's a good friend of ours. Brian Medley was doing medical for the race, and he was, you know, following me and a few other people he knew were running, and came, and we were able to talk to him. And so Brian, I knew Brian probably was going to say like, oh, she's totally fine, like nothing's wrong, kind of thing. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but I did hear Brian be like, oh my God, I've never seen her like this. And but Brian is very like pragmatic. He's very solution oriented, and so and very calm, and just doesn't really get ruffled by much. I've paced Brian at races, and we've run a lot of miles on the trails, so I was pretty confident that he wasn't gonna be like, she's dying, take her out, what have you. So I wasn't like concerned about what he was going to tell me. But so I think at that point I was in the car, and we stopped for, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and like got my core temperature down a little bit. I cried a lot here. And I think that helped me a little bit actually to kind of like get the emotions of like the whole start, the night, the morning out. Um, and we phoned a friend or two, and we were able to get some like just some encourage. I don't know that I particularly needed an encouragement as I just needed like more accountability. Um, just to know that people knew I wasn't dead just yet and I was still going, but it was just going epically slow.
I like the idea of allowing yourself that time to mourn. I mean, it's not something that people, even it's just a race, but you have to let go of the sadness of this is going so horrible and accept that, okay, now I just need to figure out how to get, so yeah, let yourself be sad for a minute and just let it pass in, let it pass out. I think it's probably a handy trick, and then move on and start figuring it out.
Yeah, I was, super disappointed that this was not going this was not going according to plan by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. And I did write a little quick recap after, and like had somebody scripted this whole day and night, and told me this is how it was going to go. I'm not really sure if I would have shown up, to be very honest, I'm certainly glad I did, and I learned a lot, which we'll talk about. But I I think too, having a lot of experience and a lot of races, and being a high performing athlete, it it certainly again was super disappointing that this wasn't gonna showcase that, but I was gonna showcase something different. And so, you know, cliche or not, I just had to freaking embrace that. And I remember asking Brian, the medic, okay, what's the next cutoff? And so back to, being in last in my wave. I wasn't last in the race time wise, but which is something that I've never experienced. And so again, it was a little daunting, but I got over it very quickly. And also asking about cutoffs and um, wondering, like, I hope I'm going to make these next cutoffs too. So that was something unique. And Brian assured me that I had plenty of time and I had hours and hours and to get to the finish line.
Hmm. So some of the lessons learned, it's been a fast hour. Things go fast. So lessons learned. You know, you talk about coming at this from your experience, all this experience you have to have this event that's happened to you that wasn't what you planned. It didn't showcase what your training that you put into this and all you got through working through those injuries and having 2 years and so what are the lessons learned? How did you get through that and what would you pull out of that?
That's a very loaded question, but listen, I think, not I think, I know that I'm most proud of this finish versus any other finish in 24 years. And, I've been fortunate. I worked my tail off, but I've won a lot of races, 100 milers, 50 milers. And while those wins are awesome, and I'm proud of those too, those were days when everything clicked, and it's just easy. And we've talked about this before. When it's easy, it's easy. And like, you're just in this whole other world. But when it's hard, I mean, you've got to go to battle and then some. And that's, I think, just in life too, like where you figure out and know what you're really made of. And I never had a moment where I didn't think I was going to finish. I didn't really know how I was going to do it. And thankfully for this awesome team, they're the reason that I was able to finish. To be super honest, I know it was my legs and my body and my mind, but without them, I would have been dead in the water. I'd still be in Death Valley, dead, dying. But truly, I found a whole other level of just grit and triumph and through disappointment, that, will like propel me forward in other things, races in the future and just life stuff, work stuff. But and also too, just because, I've got over 2 decades of doing ultras and other, marathons too. But um, you're always a student. And if you ever think you know it all, like, you don't. And a race like Badwater will punch you in the face a million times. Like we talked about, and Chris referred to Rocky. And our good friend Charlie Jones usually recounts his story. Like, he gets punched in the face at Western States, and he's not going to let that 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 thing take him out, that punch. And I kind of thought of that every time I'd get punched, and get back up. I think, oh, okay, cool, like, I got this. And then I get punched again, and it just never stopped. But I think I got used to that whole flow of, well, I did it before, I can do it again. And so again, I think that just kind of emulates anything in life and work and sport, that you can come back from things, and you can figure out a way to finish. It might not be your prettiest finish, and this was it was so not my pretty finish at all. But again, I'm really, really proud that I was able to get there. And for everybody listening too, so this was 10 hours slower than my finish time last year. And that's a lot of extra time to be out there.
In
And
Death Valley.
yeah, in Death Valley, baking and, just being torched basically. So yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing story. I mean, just amazing. Like you said about, no matter how many races you've done, you know, you get hit with these things and you have to find a way to get through them. And that is a metaphor for life. It's a metaphor for trying harder and digging deeper and not letting any obstacle in our life, in our work life, our family life, our home life. Just it really it's if you dig deep, you'll be rewarded. So
Yeah. What do
so
you guys think?
yeah, let's go around and any last remaining comments, questions, Chris?
We didn't get to the ice. We had bees, and then they ran out of
Oh,
ice.
yeah.
I kind of want to tell that story, but
Okay,
no,
we can
another
tell that
time.
story.
Another time.
Go for it. I
No.
don't know about. I haven't heard this one about the ice.
Well, after she dealt with the bees and started to dig out of the calorie deficit she was in, Brian Medley rolled up and said, "By the way, you got to hold Julie at Panamint Springs as long as you can because they've ran out of ice." That's not something you want
At
to
mile
hear in Death
70.
Valley.
Ooh,
But the race organization came through. They started shuttling bags of ice all down the course, and we were never without. In fact, they had more than we needed at times. So
wow,
kudos to the volunteers at Badwater because they really did a good job with that.
nice work. Yeah, that is. No one ran out of ice. Not there.
Yeah, and the volunteers, you guys got to jump in about Dale, our friend Dale too. But so in this kind of last stretch, and then we kind of jumped around, mileage wise, but basically mile 100, let's call it, to the end. But you're on this like long stretch. I felt like I was like the highway to hell, so to speak, but just like nothing, flat, pretty flat, few undulations, and you're just kind of out there with your team and nobody else. But there were so many volunteers that came by, making sure we were fine. We need any ice, like Chris said, and it just seemed, this could be my like opinion, but there was a few folks that just kept leapfrogging, say from like mile 100 to the end, and like following us, like I felt like they were like stalking me in a nice way. And I was like, wow, they care about me, and they're like interested in my race. And that's so cool. And so I just kept thinking like, oh, there's the guy with the white hair, there's the gal with this, and blanking on some of their names who I do know, but
Dale.
But it was very kind and just a testament to the team that Chris Kosman, the director, puts together, that they're genuinely very interested in you, and they want you to finish. Like, he does pride himself on, I don't care if you're super fast or not, like the key and the goal is to finish. So just get to that finish line in at Mount Whitney and finish the race. So volunteers were great. And yeah, Dale happened to become a part of our team and our family and follow us from, I don't know, the last 20, 25 miles of the race. And he made it very fun. Maybe not as much fun for me as my team, but
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we love the comic relief.
Dale for the win.
I
Good
think
day.
it's important to note that, even from the first 3 miles, the race director was concerned about Julie's well-being because of where she was in the race. The reason why Brian Medley, he's a great friend, but he's also, tracking to make sure she's okay because of where she is in the race. And, Julie's not been back of the pack. And when you're back of the pack, it's a different game back there. And what you see the race organization really step up and nurture and love on that as a crew member. They were so supportive to us. I mean, not having to go get ice to have it brought to us, checking on Julie, what does she need, what does she have, and just giving us support of just encouragement, because we've been up for a few days too, so it's nice to get it from an outside source. They gave us, at least I'm speaking, I know it did for you too as well, it gave us energy as a crew to be able to transfer that onto Julie as well. So she definitely had some, there were Julie fans on course for sure. It was
Nice.
cool.
Brian, any parting thoughts as the 3-time you've seen her do this 3 times in a row, and now this experience?
I guess I'm at a loss for words. Just extremely proud of Julie. You know, just seeing what the mind can do and just the mental fortitude, absolutely amazing. And I walk away every year, and every year, and you all know my background. I've been through some tough stuff in the Army and been overseas. And every year I walk away like with a greater appreciation for life and like, wow, that was really tough. And that was really hard. And it pushed me to the max. And to do it with you all, extremely, extremely grateful. So, Julie, thanks for bringing us together for yet another year. I don't want to do it next year, but thanks for bringing us together.
And I'm done.
That's good, because as we know, this is like my final ride in Death Valley. And
Yeah.
No. I swear, I didn't say this to a lot of people, but I think everybody on the team knew, like, win, lose, or draw, this was it for me. Not because I don't love the race and have had a blast, like doing it the last 3 years, and then the prior year, helping our friend Leslie Carboni, who finished too. She did awesome, and she did the Badwater Cup too, which is several of the races during this calendar year. So hats off to her for doing that. But as an older athlete now, too, you have to go all in on one thing, and there's just some other things on my list that I'd like to do that happen in the spring, summertime. So it just kind of coincides with just other opportunities that I'd like to take a chance at. And so I'm not saying that I will never do it again. I'd be happy to help somebody else, of course, in the future, or maybe be on the race staff, but it's just not something in the near future that I'm going to personally run. So, and I am really okay with that. And again, one would think with the time that I finished this race in this year and the experience I had, the desire to want to go back and do better would be there. And of course, like I'll be lying to you if I said like there wasn't like that small percent in my brain thinking that, but I also knew that this was maybe not the way it was like I had envisioned it was going to end for now, but this was actually was a better book than I actually could have written. And I think it was like the perfect way actually to end that. Yeah. So, but I want to go back to too, like not only was I in dire straits about caloric intake and getting sick, but my feet were a disaster. And when we put this out, we'll include some pictures
Great.
that are kind of graphic, but I think it does it justice too. And I've not had in the feet department, I've been very fortunate in over 2.5 decades to not have a lot of trouble with my feet and blisters and whatnot. And the doctor, because I did see a doctor after the race or when we got back to Sacramento, but it was like a metabolic issue, why my feet blistered so bad and what was happening to them very, very early on. And we probably waited a little too long to take care of them. Melissa, bless her heart, did surgery, but it, and so basically from 100K on, every step, so I forgot about the puking and feeling sick and all that kind of jazz and no energy. And now it was just like every step I took freaking hurt. I'm telling you, hurt like I've never hurt before. And that was weighing on my mind and my body more than any of this other stuff. Like it compounded everything for sure. But that was honestly the worst part, that my feet hurt so freaking bad that and year 1 and 2, I did not have this one bit at all. And again, you just like never know what can happen.
Wow, what a story. What a story. And we're gonna get this podcast all polished up and to be on the YouTube channel, but
yeah,
with photos of her feet, maybe some bees, maybe some sewing up. It's gonna be great. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Brian, from coming from Minnesota. MJ,
Welcome.
it's always a pleasure to see you. And Chris and Amy, thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a great chat to sit down with her, and we're gonna stay tuned for Julie's Jewels and coming into the race season for NorCal Ultras. We got some exciting stuff planned for Rio, some exciting live stream things planned this year. And then next spring, we'll stay tuned to see what Julie has in mind for us. So thanks for the story, Julie. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Okay, goodbye.
Thank
Bye.
Great. Okay, awesome. We'll still record, and then we can just we can chat for a minute. But
Grab some old snippet for like MJ.
We should do like
we were shooting for an hour, but it was an hour and 20. So
Yeah,
thanks, you guys, thanks for it's a lot of story. I mean, yeah,
40
I mean,
race,
good.
6 hours.
yeah, I thought it was great and good flow and good stories. We could have kept talking about bees and barf and ice
And
and
the little green bugs too. Forget about those.
Yeah,
Oh,
the green bugs. Well, and what about Father Crowley and the shit smell?
wow.
oh yeah, we should have talked about
Oh my, you can't make it up. The bugs and the poop.
what we can do on
Oh, that is the worst smelling
Badwater
outhouse.
Basin isn't a whole lot better, but boy, Father Crowley, you have to wait there for a while.
Dude, I felt so bad for you guys.
Couple of
You're there
pit
for like an
toilets
hour,
in
and I'm like,
130 degrees for a week, and man, you're pretty ripe. I can't
for-
imagine anybody using those things.
So for listeners that are still tuned in for this section of the show, this is the after show, and Amy has some questions supposed to throw out for the after show here.
Full question and comment. But my first thing, which I know the crew did already talk, but I wanted everyone, because that was such a brutal experience, I think, for not just Julie, but all of you guys. I'm interested in hearing, like, what was your favorite part or your like core memory, that takeaway that, you know, kept you keeping her going.
Who's first? Brian,
Brian's
you're
got it.
laughing. That means you're first.
Oh, I remember getting yelled at by Julie.
Probably all do.
We were we were going up. This is where we were going up Mount Whitney, and this is kind of where we're trading on and off. And I'm like, oh, we're almost to and this is where we're almost to like mile. It was like mile 130 or something like that. Maybe MJ, and from there was like the 5K, and I'm like, we're almost there. We're almost there. And Julie's like, no, we're not. Look at that. We have to go to the switchback. I'm like, yep, you're right. You're right. Yep, we got to do the switchback, but we're almost there to the checkpoint. She's like, oh, yep.
Yeah, there's
But
no good.
Julie, I didn't know your feet were. I mean, your feet look pretty rough, but you keep some of those ends, like you keep things in so much.
I mean, there was
I
so
didn't
much
realize.
going wrong, so to speak, that I feel like I was a woman of few words, because it was like,
Yeah.
I had zero energy. I literally felt like dog crap the entire time. Like, it's the worst I've ever felt, and just so happens it has to be in Badwater, the world's toughest foot race, but fitting. And I really was just like, Top Gun Maverick, don't think, just do. Like, I just couldn't think. The more I thought, it would get me in trouble, and it would piss me off, and I would get so frustrated. I got frustrated, of course, and sometimes I would let that out, but I just had to just stop thinking, and literally I was just praying every hour for the misery to be concluded. And so on that final stretch up to Whitney, and for those of you who don't know, so the last half marathon is the toughest half marathon you'll ever run. Walk, hike for my, maybe the winner ran up the hill, but it is, I mean, it takes most people 4.5, 5.5, 6 hours to go up this thing for 13 miles. Okay. Cause you're going straight uphill. And although getting there is like a feat in itself, and I felt like relieved just to get to Lone Pine, but I also was like kind of pissed that I still had hours to go, and I needed to keep it together just to get to the finish line. And this year we had a detour the first 2.5-ish miles where we were on some trail because the road had washed out. And although I was the first about 30 seconds of the trail, I was like, this is awesome. And Melissa was with me. But then it got really hot, like the clouds were coming in and out, and my feet just started freaking burning, and the sand was so hot, and we were out of fluids. We were out of stuff. We happened to see some runners coming by and were able to kind of mitigate. But it was just like, it put a damper on being on trail for once in this entire race of a different type of terrain. And I do love running trails, but it just was like, oh my gosh, when is the pavement going to come back? And like, let's just get on with this show here. So it was just something that it was just different than in the past. And so when you're used to routine or the same course, You just had to deviate from the plan a little bit, and I think it was a little longer than what they told us. Not totally sure.
100% longer. It was
Yeah.
2 miles. It was supposed to be like 1.2. It was 2 miles
So
long. And it was like running in a pizza oven, like on a pizza stone. We were on a pizza stone. When you ask like what I think of, there's couple of couple of memories that are very vivid. That memory is one of them. Number one, because Julie's feet were flipping hamburger. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, running on that ground it was sandstone, like I can't even, gritty, shitty, really, really rough. And it was hot. Like when I think about like all the races I've done, all the heat that I've been in, hands down, that stretch was the hottest I've ever felt. It was, we were running on a pizza stone in a pizza oven, 100%.
Wow.
So Melissa, to this is a little funny thing for those of you that know me. If you show me a map, I'm navigationally, you lost me. Like, don't even show me the paper or the file. I have to go out and like do things and memorize it that way. And so Melissa, I ask her for the 100th time, like, how much freaking longer? Like, where are they? When does the road hit the trail? Like, I can't see the markings. And she pulls up this topo map.
I pull up the map and I'm like, see this little curve? So she doesn't like know she get lost in a brown paper bag. Okay, God love her. But trust the person that knows directions. Okay. So if I tell, and the data I had was not syncing up with our watches or the time. So you keep waiting for it to end because it's only supposed to be so long. And then it ended up being a lot longer and you can see the road. So I was like, well, see this squiggly line? And she's like, oh my God, dude, I can't look. And I'm like, okay, bad idea. But we're not there yet.
I really appreciate like all the like things everybody was trying to do. And I was like, oh my God, I just cannot percolate any of that like at any time. Yeah, I don't even know in my best of days. I still couldn't read a topo map, to be very honest. So
That's
Chris, what are you thinking, Chris?
Oh, I mean, in terms of highlights,
Yeah, highlights.
I'm kind of, I should have been more prepared.
Well, if you want to think, I just want to say, Brian, how you said that you didn't know how bad her feet were. I wasn't there, but I can confirm after, as the person that was popping her blisters 2 days after. I've never seen anything. So I mean, like, I don't even know how she could walk. Like, pea-sized blisters off the top of her toes. Like, it was pretty brutal. I don't even know how she could have done through the desert, let alone walk to her car after.
and not to add fuel to my fire of how terrible I was in shape. My lips burned really bad this year, and I was using lip protection pretty much the whole way. I remember it being in my shorts, and I would use it. But again, according to the doctor, this is a little metabolic too. That they got burnt so bad that a couple days after we got back, I had to get on some antibiotics to take care of that because I could not eat, I could not drink. I was sick. I felt like death. And it was impeding my sleep too. So between my feet, my lips, and my body, yeah, I was a train wreck. So, but I still finished.
Badwater.
And you didn't waste any energy complaining about it during the time. The extent of the damage, call it, didn't really dawn on me until like a week after the race, because I was expecting that you'd be able to walk around, and it was you weren't complaining, but you just let slip in a text or something. Yeah, I got to go on these antibiotics for my lips, and I was like, it. And I saw the feet, so I knew what the feet were like. But man, that was
pictures too. Yeah,
that's
I was
that
lucky enough to get them. texted to me
That's
too.
the highlight, I guess, is I can't think of any one particular moment, but Brian touched on it. It's like I've never seen anything like I'm proud for you for that one far more than uh the the pride I felt for last year's finish, which was like it was a well executed race, and but this was like in the face of every form of. I mean, there was biblical adversity, and you just kept going, and I'm like, that was I you never have to explain yourself to anybody ever again after having done that. So yeah, that was a pretty epic uh, testament to your toughness.
Awesome. That is super.
So that's my highlight.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out for the after show, you guys.
Well, I have one last thing I want to say, kind of going off what you just said about, all of you said about being so proud of her. One thing I think really, I didn't realize till today when I got here, that just speaks to what an experience it was for not just Julie, but for all of you. I came in, so I'm in Julie's office right now. I came in, and on her desk is this card. Sorry, Brian, to call you out. This card from Brian. You were sweating your butt off in the desert, crewing, helping her, and you sent a thank you card? I mean, that, I think, really sums it all up, that it was such an experience that was very moving.
Yeah, when I got that, I was like, exactly what Amy just said. Like, what the heck? Like, I feel like a total piece of crap that I'm not sending out thank you cards. They're coming. Like, I'm just a little delayed on everything lately, but yeah. So that was very, very sweet, and I truly appreciate that. But I really, again, like I said, you ride and die by your team, by your crew. So you guys deserve all those thanks and kudos.
Absolutely. Well, Julie, I think people would pay for this experience, to be honest with you.
It's a privilege to be on the
pay
team.
for it.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry,
for it 100
MJ,
different ways.
you had something.
Oh, no, I don't. I was just being funny, but nothing. No.
Chris, or no, you.
No,
Well,
I was just saying it's a fulfilling thing. Brian's just a teddy bear, Brian. So I'm not surprised that he sent you a thank you card.
I do, and I know we have to wrap this up, but you can't.
Kind of man she is.
You can't go without saying how great it was as a group to be with you guys. I can't stress that enough. The memories and the laughs, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever done crewing, but the laughter and the inside jokes and the things that we see and do, you're not getting that from the couch. I mean, you don't want to live a mediocre life. Crewing at Badwater will definitely take you out of mediocrity. And I think that's what, as ultra runners, we all strive, is to not be mediocre, to do something different, to challenge ourselves and to do hard things. And being able to see Julie do the hard thing, even when she was injured, even getting to the start line, not feeling good, dealing with everything, and to continue going. I knew she would finish. It's just the kind of woman that she is. How she's going to get there, yeah, that I have some choice words on that. But but it's just an honor to be there, to experience it, and to be with Brian and Chris along the way. I wouldn't change that for anything. I just love you guys, and it was fun, good times, and tough.
Nice work. Awesome. Nice work.
So do you want to do it now?
No.
Anyone?
You know what's funny?
Bueller?
Never say. Last thing you can do in the universe is say, I won't do something. The universe loves when you say that, because then it's like, oh yeah, we start turning the wheels right now. So never say never.
100%.
Okay. Well, good night, you guys. Thanks for staying for the after show. And we will see you on the next Julie's Jewels, and whatever adventure she does, we will be ready to talk about it.
Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you.